Welcome to a brand new CornNation Overreaction Revisited. I'm your host, Greg Mahochko. Ha! Over there, my good friend, longtime broadcast buddy and fellow Husker fan, Mr. Haas. Roger Haas, how are you doing this evening, this week, this whatever? Time is irrelevant.
Time is a flat circle. It's a construct. I'm doing well.
Is it a flat circle because of like the face of a watch?
Sure. I'm doing well. Unlike my emotional state after this game that we're going to talk about today, because I know that, Greg, what year did you graduate high school, my friend?
2000.
Okay, so you probably listened to some Matchbox 20 at some point in your life.
I'm not crazy. I'm just a little unwell.
That was my mental state after the Michigan State game in East Lansing.
By the way,
it's a great song.
Purely coincidental that I went with that one. But I'll say this. I think Yourself or Someone Like You is one of the more underrated albums of the 90s.
Oh, yeah. Like I actually went to a Matchbox 20 concert in Omaha back in 2023. It was a great concert. Like, great music. It's 90s music, in my opinion, is a lot better than 80s music.
I think there's more variety. 80s, you had, and again, I was born in 82, so a lot of this, but you have the pop, then you had the hair metal, and then you had the ground swelling of the hip hop. Mm-hmm. But in the 90s, you had the evolution of
grunge.
You had the evolution of hip hop. What that started to grow into. You had grunge. You had alternative, and yeah. So I know people who would be very displeased to hear that because they are more children of the 80s because they're a decade older than me.
90s around here.
Yeah, we know what's up.
And that song just perfectly described all of our mental and emotional states from November 1st to November 24th of last year. And this Maryland game might be the one that if we were all going to seek therapy as a collective fan base, this game was it. This game had it all. I mean, when you talk about the torture of being a Husker fan since the year 2001, this game had it all. You had bad wins that created, field goal problems like Scott Frost's first year with Barrett Pickering. You had a mass turnover event like 2009 Iowa State under Bo Pelini. I don't know why I just totally drew a blank there.
You're trying to force the bad out of your mind.
You had bad play calling, like it was Frank Solich running a short side option on 3rd and 3. And then you had bad quarterback play, which really just encapsulates the past, quarter century of Husker football better than anything. So this game, and then to top it off, it was like a Nebraska Northwestern Twilight Zone special game where everything was just weird. It was a weird game. It was a game where we faked a punt on our first drive to keep the drive going, and it worked. Nate Berkacher, right? But then we threw an interception. Yeah. Heinrich Harburg gets hurt. Jeff Sims comes in. Jeff Sims really does some shit, like we thought it was bad the last time we saw him out in Boulder. It's even worse this go around. You're talking flat-footed interceptions with no follow through, standing there in the pocket. And then when all hope is nearly lost, Chuba Purdy comes in, marches us right down to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Only for it to implode on us and to literally, I think we're all feeling like, college football's equivalent of Job from the Bible.
That's a hell of a reference, by the way.
And sometimes, it's like, God, why? It's like, hey, like that's life as a college football fan. But we were all unwell. I was very unwell after this game.
By the way, as I mentioned, I'm a huge fan of Yourself or Someone Like You. Unwell wasn't until More Than You Think You Are. which was more of the early aughts. Just
early aughts were not time.
Yeah. I mean, which fits this game incredibly,
This game, I honestly, like, I'm almost embarrassed that I let Maryland Terrapin football piss me off this badly, make me this sad, because all the sadness is just anger, That's all it is. Like, this game just, like, irritates me. Like, the fact that so many damn opportunities and we pissed them all away. Yeah, I mean, some of the play calling we had in third down and fourth down in short yardage situations was just abysmal. You had trying to run a little duo, RPO where you have the option to give it to Emmett Johnson up the middle on duo, or keep it and hit a tight end sliding out of the backfield. And Jeff Sims is right there if he keeps the ball to first down. And instead, I think he, retreats even further back and throws an interception. So I think now that I've gotten all of my emotional baggage out at this point, I think it's time for you to pull up the old box score and we go through it one by one so we can just purge this shit and move on.
So it was it was Military Appreciation Day because it was Veterans Day. It was November 11th, 2023, Memorial Stadium. There were 86,830 went through the turnstiles on this Saturday, this particular Saturday, to watch Nebraska fall. Go into silence in another one-score game to the Maryland Terrapins, 13-10. The two teams traded a whole lot of nothing in the first quarter as we went scoreless into the second. Maryland got on the board on a 16-yard pass from that guy.
Talia Tagovailoa?
Yeah. To Tom Felton, who played Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter movies. No, I'm sure it's a different Tom Felton. I don't even think it's Tom. It's T. Felton is what it says on the bottom. Anyway, that happened with 2:31 left in the half, and the teams entered the locker rooms. Nebraska down in front of the home crowd, the Husker faithful, yet to release their red balloons, but they would have reason. Yes, sir, and madams in the listening audience. Anyway, the third quarter, Nebraska.
That was for you, Minnie.
And others, because there was the 2-yard touchdown run from Bonner, 11:35, let's do it backwards, 3:25. There we go, into the second half. That with a Tristan Alvano extra point made the score 7-7. And just a few minutes later, Alvano would hit a 38-yard field goal, and Nebraska would go up 10-7, and that was with 8:26 to play in the game, or in the third quarter. And that was the last Nebraska would score.
You're leaving out some stuff, though, man.
Yeah, I'm just hitting the scoring because that's
a phenomenal defensive effort of Javin Wright.
Well, hit me with it, big dog.
Oh, I mean, he forced the 2 turnovers.
I'm not even there yet. All
right, keep going then. I'm just a prick.
Oh no, you're fine. But I don't remember any of that stuff. Again, there's only so much capacity in this brain space of mine.
Yeah.
So
except I'm like Elrond in Lord of the Rings. I was there, Gandalf. I was there 3,000 years ago. I remember it all, unfortunately.
And that's amazing. And that's why we make such a good team. Because I fill in just a little bit and you paint the picture. Like, I'm doing the outline and you're with.
Honestly, I don't know why ABC just doesn't hire us to replace, Fowler and Herbstreit.
Here's the thing. Put me in a live play-by-play situation, I would crush. I love doing play-by-play. I did play-by-play for years in my terrestrial radio gigs, and I loved it. And I used to do high school football by myself without a color guy. When I first started, this sidebar, when I first started in Shadron 21 years ago, it was 2003. And I got there 2 weeks before the first game of the season. It was myself. I was doing play-by-play. I had a former Shadron Cardinal who was in the booth with me as a color commentator, and one of the sales reps who was huge in high school football, huge in high school wrestling. He was a sideline reporter, and eventually he moved on to do something else. I think he started working for the railroad. And after a couple of years, the other guy, he's like, I got my own business and stuff I got to worry about. So I did the last 2 years of Shadron Cardinal football by myself. All play-by-play, all color. On home games, I'd run down to the field like during the post-game commercial break, and I'd track down one of the players and do an on-field post-game interview with them. You put me in the booth,
all right,
and we'll make magic. But for me to remember the game, like I just can't.
So, like, if we're ever calling ABC Saturday Night Football, you'll be like, "You are looking live," and it'll be me being like, "Well, you see, Greg, they're trying to run duo, and they got 3 tight ends set off to the right, so they got a 7-man surface. They got gaps A, B, C, D, all down the line. They're washing them down. Beautiful cut, straight up field."
Exactly. When we're in the booth for ABC Saturday Night Football, my job is play-by-play. I follow the football, and I'm very linear and very specific with what I'm saying. And then you come in with your Magic Madden board, and you draw in and be like, "This is exactly why." And if you accidentally draw a penis on there, that's fine. That's up to the network to clear out. But you paint the picture of why that was successful or why the Nebraska Cornhusker defense blew it up. You know what would be really great? I don't know if we can. I was going to say, I think it's probably illegal to like stream the video with our own commentary over it.
Honestly, it'd be great, though.
If we can find like some D2, D3 school that just
doesn't care.
That doesn't care.
Hub.
Yeah. Come on. Be fun. Yeah. All right.
Anyways. So yeah.
Nebraska Maryland tied the game on a 35-yard field goal with 12:42 left to play in the game, and they won it in walk-off fashion with a 24-yard field goal from the same individual. And this is where, if you were with us last week, Haas has said this is the most painful game of the season. This caused more emotion. What's that gif or meme? The emotional damage. I can't do it, but you internet people, you know what I'm talking about. Than the Iowa game.
Yeah. I didn't think that initially at the time, and then as the season, we got to the end of the season. And you go through that couple-month period where you don't want anything to do with the season that just ended. And then sometime after the Super Bowl, you're like, I'm going to start revisiting some Nebraska stuff, football withdrawals. And when I was sitting there, I'm like, damn, this really kind of sucks. Like, this game really pissed me off because you could tell that even though it was just Maryland, that this staff had the team dialed in completely. From like there was a sense of urgency from the very first snap. And so what really kind of irritates me about this game, why it's a loss that bothers me so much is, a lot of times in football, you'll hear coaches say some of the best coaching jobs came on teams that weren't very good, but they coached their asses off. The players played their asses off. This game kind of encapsulates that, where it's like at that point in the season in game 10, we knew what we were. We didn't deviate that. We didn't try to, pretend we were something we weren't. But they had that urgency of let's go win this thing. Let's go lock up bowl eligibility before going to Wisconsin. Let's have bowl eligibility in hand before playing Iowa in the season finale. And let's get it done right here. So like that fake punt on the opening drive, Nate Burkitcher, takes it for a first down. That was a staff that was playing, to keep the season going. They're pulling out all the stops, using every bullet in the gun. And then, the quarterback problems in this game were just so innumerable. I mean, I do think that a healthy Heinrich Harburg from a month prior probably does make a difference in this game. But by the time we played Maryland, he was so beat up from the Purdue game, from the Michigan State game, that there really was no, there was nothing left for him to do. I think he had an ankle injury. I think he was still fighting some of the effects of a possible concussion. And so we had to bring in Jeff Sims, and Sims just, he's a known quantity at that point. I think that maybe at that point we should have really tried to focus on the tailback run game a little bit more, get Emmett Johnson, a lot of carries in that game. And then at that point, Chuba Purdy comes in, gives us that threat on the edge, and his passing wasn't pretty, but it was more effective than Sims. And so this game, just talk about a roller coaster. Talk about a roller coaster where offensively you're gripping when we're out there on offense. Defensively, you're feeling pretty good. Maryland really didn't do much. What'd they have for total yardage, Greg? You're muted.
Total yardage. They had 384 yards.
Okay, a little more than I initially thought. Damn.
To our 269.
Damn, 384. That's a little more than I initially thought.
Well, here's what happened.
They had to go a lot of yards on the very last drive.
Tagovailoa?
Yep.
Did I get that? Okay. His stat line was 27 for 40, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 1 sack, but 283 yards.
So they ran for 101.
They ran for exactly 100, but he targeted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 different players. 10 different players had targets. 9 of those 10 had receptions.
Yeah, 7.1 yards per attempt. That's still a little bit, you'd like to see that down around 6.
You're just showing off.
But no, the defense did play exceptionally well in this game still. They came up with stops in the red zone. They had a very, very, the defensive possession right before Chuba Purdy comes in to lead us on that drive, from our own 5. That was a fumble that we recovered. So we played good red zone defense. Javin Wright had a couple of takeaways in this game.
He had an interception. He had the fumble. Yep. He had 8 total tackles. We had just the 1 sack, and that was Marcus Buford, 1 sack for 11 yards.
The pass rush, though, it's kind of like, a few weeks ago we were talking about how certain staff writers talked about how can Ty Robinson play a great game when he doesn't record a tackle against Northwestern, or he only had a couple of tackles. Well, defensive tackles, they have an impact on a game, much more than what comes in the stat column. I thought our defensive front and our pass rush was phenomenal in this game.
Robinson had 7 tackles, had 1.5 tackles for loss and a fumble recovery. Also had 2 pass breakups and a quarterback hurry. Nash had 4 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. Let's see who else we got here. Meant to talk about Javin Wright. I think he gave his stats already. Here's what you don't like seeing. You don't like seeing Anthony Grant, Ben Scott, those guys with tackles.
Yeah.
Something went horribly awry. Yeah. Isaac Gifford had 7 tackles. Tommy Hill had 6. Omar Brown had 6. Talk about guys in the secondary, doing their best. Brown with a fumble and a fumble recovery with 2 pass breakups. Tommy Hill 2 pass breakups. Javin Wright, obviously, probably defensive player of the game, maybe offensive player or overall player of the game for his efforts. But I want to scroll back up because you talked about the quarterback situation. Heinrich Harburg went down at such a time he was 1 for 5 with an interception and a sack.
He
no yards.
Start to this game.
Jeff Sims comes in. went 8 for 13 with 2 interceptions, 62 yards. And then Chuba Purdy, I don't know, I still say Chuba. I'm probably wrong. That's okay. What Purdy did was create the element of, dare I say, competency from the quarterback position with fresh legs, but 1 for 3 with an interception. His one completion went for 24 yards. There was nothing stellar about the quarterback play. And you said, like we mentioned a couple weeks ago, talking about the Purdue game, the fact that Harburg was out there and was just banged up to hell. I mean, but then you have Sims coming in off the bench, and he ran the ball for 10. He ran the ball 10 times, and I know that was always said that was his biggest strength, is his ability to extend the play or make things happen with his feet. I'm like, again, I don't want that from a quarterback. Nobody in positions of power at the University of Nebraska are listening to the show, so they don't care about my opinion. But Emmett Johnson, I almost said Emmett Smith, but Emmett Johnson. I almost
said that earlier.
17 carries, so he's finally actually starting to be the featured guy. 84 yards net. The only touchdown was Bonner's. I mean, hell, when you lose 13-10, you only have one touchdown. That was Bonner. But Emmett Johnson should have been the guy getting that 23 to 28 carries.
Yep. I think this game almost felt like a game too where they were very scared to put it in Anthony Grant's hands at any point because of his history as a fumbler. And Emmett Johnson had that big run on our last drive to get us down into the red zone. And then the play calling really kind of hit the skids there. Yeah. From there. Malachi Coleman, he was the intended receiver on the Purdy interception. That's a play that, as an upperclassman, I think he makes, getting across the face of the DB. But as a freshman in the Big Ten Conference against a team like Maryland that always has some pretty good athleticism in the defensive back seven, it just wasn't there. And, Chuba, now you got me,
sorry,
how to say it.
Sorry.
He probably should have gone else. He should have protected the football a little bit better on that play. I don't like that throw based on how the coverage was aligned to begin with. You're looking at tight press man coverage. There's not a lot of room in that area of the field to run a slant against that unless you got a really physical receiver with good body control, like a Maurice Purify or someone like that.
I think that'll happen with Coleman in time.
Yep, I do too. That's why right after this game happened back in November, I remember I was watching it at good buddy of mine's house, good friend of the show. I don't know if he listens to this show. He listens to the Five Heart. Jake, I told him the same thing. That's probably a play that he makes as a senior, as an upperclassman. And
on top of that, I mean, I'm sure you've seen, I know you're busy with life and work and everything else, but during spring, they put out a picture, maybe he put out a picture, or maybe it was the strength staff, of what he has put on his frame in this offseason.
Yeah, he looks like he's put on about 15 pounds.
Yeah. And again, that good, healthy way. Like, a lot of things have to fall into place. I'm not, but he's getting that dominant D1 number one receiver type of build.
Yep.
Because he's already had the height. I mean, you can't coach height. You either have it or you don't.
I think he's going to be a great player. I think it's just unfortunate that this happened at this point, freshman. But after that turnover, I don't think the defense was equipped to,
rally.
I mean, you could just feel that the sails, were completely deflated.
I mentioned a few minutes ago that Tagovailoa, anyway.
Tagovailoa.
Sure. Targeted 10 different receivers. Nebraska as a team had 10 completions.
I mean, it goes to show how bad our defense, how bad
our quarterback situation was. Emmett Johnson, by the way, was the leading receiver as far as receptions with 3.
One thing I want to say about this game, I like Matt Rule.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Matt Rule is the best football coach that we could have hired in 2022, at the end of that season.
I don't know if I like the way that you
this game
threw that disclaimer out there.
Game
there's a whole lot
was the first time that I kind of found myself going, on a few in-game decisions. One of them was, I think, and it was a windy day. I do remember, even in Omaha that day, 50-some miles up the road, it was gray, overcast, and it was windy. But one of the things in that game, I think that he may have played in a little bit too much about taking the wind into account, where we foregoed a field goal instead to go for it on 4th and 1 and didn't get it. And I know Alvano's not the most accurate kicker, but, to quote a friend of the show, Al Pacino from last week, life's a game of inches,
Yeah.
So, you just gotta try sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I think that was one of the moments that I was kind of like, I think I would have been more comfortable trying for the field goal as opposed to trying to pick up a 4th down with a quarterback who, I feel for Jeff Sims. You could tell that he had no confidence in his abilities at this point in the season. He just was not an effective quarterback. And so I think that trying the field goal may have been better than trying to pick up the first down, because field position 6 of one half dozen of the other. You don't pick it up on the 4th down attempt, you give them the ball right there where the play ends. You don't get the field goal, you give them the ball right there where the play ends, So that's about the only thing. Like, I still, next week, when we talk Wisconsin, you're going to hear me defend Rule's decision at the end of regulation to take the clock down, just play for the field goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that we covered this back in November when we did it on the Sunday after the Wisconsin game. But, yeah, this one hurt, man. This one hurt because the team, they deserve to win this one.
Every week, it seemed last week I said that this defense deserves better. And the defense did all they could, just given the fact that the offense put them in a lot of bad spots. So I don't know if at the time I indicated that the defense deserved better during this game, but I at least feel, and we want to end this episode on a bit more of a, we don't want to be downers. The moves have seemed to have taken place, and correct me if I'm wrong, to not have to withstand a lot of this in 2024.
I don't think you're going to see a game like this in 2024 unless it's against, we go up against another defensive heavyweight, that can really stymie an offense. But I think that if in 2024, if we play, I'm just going to pull a team out of nowhere, say UCLA,
mm-hmm.
and UCLA rolls up 384 yards on us, 283 passing, 101 yards rushing, and we hold them to 13 points, I'm going to feel pretty confident that our offense comes through and we score about 24 to 31 points.
Okay.
So, no, I think, this game, I'm not trying to sound like I'm doing dramatic pauses. It's just like I could say a lot about this game still.
Right.
It's still –
It's
like probably being a bit dramatic here, but it's kind of like Saban losing to Louisiana Monroe his first year at Alabama.
Turned out pretty well for him if Nebraska has similar trajectory. Could we – I thought we'd end this show on a positive note, but you clearly have more to say. Haas, I want you to unburden yourself. I want you to sit in the – so –
all right.
Let me contextualize this briefly. I'm Catholic, and when I go, regardless of what people out there,
I'm Catholic too.
I know, but regardless of what people out there view, the Catholic faith, the Catholic Church, the idea of confession. Like when I go to confession, because I'm a sinner, I feel lighter. I feel better. Now I'm still a shithead, but I want this to be its own version of CornNation
confession.
It sounds much more meaningful than what I mean. But when we stop recording, I want all of this. I don't want you to hold on to any of this. I want this all to be behind you.
I'll give it my best go.
I know you will.
I never believed in curses until last November. I never I even like the Chicago Cubs. I'm like, I don't believe in curses. But last November changed my opinion on that. When you literally got 4. No, not you. I mean the collective you. The collective you. The Nebraska fan base you. The institution itself.
Yeah.
You got 4 games to get
to win one.
Eligibility.
Yeah.
The West is right there for the taking. And with each game, you start to go, well, shit, you start gripping a little bit more. So that East Lansing, Michigan State game, come away from that and you're like, God, are the Road Dogs just cursed? Because when I went to that Iowa game in 22, it wasn't the Road Dogs trip. It was with a couple other friends of mine. And so, you're like, are the Road Dogs cursed? And then against Maryland, are you thinking, is the Nebraska quarterback position cursed? Then you get to Wisconsin, and you got a quarterback that comes off the bench like it's, like Lou Gehrig and Wally Pipp, that whole saying, and he's playing out of his mind, go up 14-0, and then we get outscored 24-3 the rest of the game and lose in overtime. And then you get to the end of the season, you're playing Iowa. Tommy Hill gets an interception with 30 seconds left. You think, to quote The Sopranos, damn, we're going to win this thing. And we find a way to fuck it up. These are the things that, as a fan base, should haunt our dreams, And for the fact that we lose in heartbreaking fashion, I won't really call Michigan State heartbreaking, but lose in heartbreaking fashion 3 straight weeks to end the year. It's like, are we cursed? Are we cursed? Was this the final purge of any bad karmic debt that this program had for its run in the 1990s? Are we square with the house now?
We had better be. And honestly, I would like to think that.
Tired of getting kicked in the groin every Saturday.
I'll tell you about that off air. You would have thought that we would have been square 10 years ago.
After 2021, we went 3-9 with all those 1-score losses. You would have thought that we'd be square.
Yeah. And now here at the end of 2023, we tack on 4 more 1-score losses. We're a game away from bowl eligibility. Because you have famously said countless times, that's not an indictment. That's just an observation. We haven't been to a bowl game since the Obama administration.
It's been a minute.
We are coming up, this fall. By the time the regular season ends, regardless of who is elected, and
we're going to be on our second election since we went to a bowl game. We'll be on one of 2 individuals' second presidency, unless the tides change. It ends no more in 24.
We will go to a bowl game before before a president is
inaugurated.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know what?
You can tell how much I pay attention.
This is my personal guarantee
to
our listeners, and I don't know for whatever it's worth. We have no control over outcomes of games. We're just commentators. Maybe we do. You will be listening to us in an overreaction episode at some point between December 24th, and January 20th. January 21st. You're going to be listening. You're going to be listening to us talk about Nebraska in a bowl game for the first time. For the first time since Riker Fife threw 2 touchdowns to Brandon Riley.
Speaking of Chubba, I'm getting a little Chubba right now thinking about it. So
I just want to go to a bowl. I want to be able to walk into Husker Hounds on December 17th and buy a bowl game hoodie.
Ooh.
It's been a minute.
Can you buy one for me? I don't get
I'll
to Husker Hounds too often.
I'll ship it to you. I would just like that hat.
Did you get that hat in the mail? I know we talked about it.
No, it's made it to my car. Gradualism.
I just want you to know, I sent 2 bottles of barbecue sauce to our friend Josh on Saturday, and it arrived today. So barbecue sauce from the St. Louis area. So
okay, you know what? You've really motivated me.
Well,
you're gonna have to text me your address though. I wrote it down and I lost it.
That's fine. And you know what? I came to the conclusion that I'm a grown ass man and I can buy my own damn clothes. So I got my own shirt from CaviCorn.com.
But this hat comes straight from Nebraska.
Right.
It was at Matt Rule's first game in Memorial Stadium.
Did he wear it?
Yeah, I bought it before the game and I wore it. And then I was like, you know what? I don't, it just was not a hat that got in my regular rotation, but I don't want to see it go to waste.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's been worn one time.
One time. Hey, don't autograph it because I do want to wear it and I don't want to have to ask all those questions.
Huh?
But if I get it, no pressure, but if I get it by Saturday, I'll wear it into Indiana. I'll wear it into Ohio when I'm on vacation.
Good. Show those Buckeyes that October 26th, we coming.
We're coming for you. All right.
But that's it. We're turning we can't turn the page yet on 2023. We got 2 more games to go. But I am unburdened.
I'm so happy. And folks, if you want to be happy too, make sure, especially if you're on YouTube watching, hit that like button. Also subscribe and click the bell for notifications so that you know when we upload new content or when we drop a new streaming live episode. Those live episodes tend to happen on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursday nights. And we would do more if more people wanted to step up and say, hey, I want to have a great idea for a show. Whether it's basketball, we had a softball podcast throughout the spring.
Do we really?
We did.
All right.
It was called Husker Heat, and it was with Andy and Miley Ketterson.
Hell yeah.
And I know from years back how much you used to enjoy the softball team. That's all I'm going to say. I couldn't let it go. But all love, brother. All love. But if we're coming up on volleyball season, and we have a premier volleyball writer on the CornNation staff. We have one of the best writers for wrestling, so much so that he writes for Flow Wrestling and kind of does a side gig for CornNation. We're giving a lot of sports a lot more coverage than the traditional media outlets. So we appreciate all the support of CornNation. We encourage you again to make sure that you subscribe. I think we're closing in on 10,000 subscribers, Hollis. So
nice. We're doing something right, evidently.
As soon as we get to 10,000, I think John gets a pay raise from YouTube. So any more money we can funnel to John and away from YouTube is good for business. So
his retirement plan, man.
Yeah. That's more for off air. But speaking of, I got some I want to share with you off air as well. Okay. Which is everybody's gonna be like, "The hell are you talking about, Greg?" What I'm talking about is the end of this show. So for my good friend, fellow Husker fan, and longtime broadcast buddy Hoss Reuter, I'm Greg Mahochko. This is CornNation Overreaction Revisited. And we'll be back next week crying over Wisconsin yet again. In the meantime, go Big Red. Hoss.
Don't stop believing.
You changed it on me again. I was ready.